Have you ever had time where you're like, I can't do this?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I wanted to quit last week. It's the hardest work I've done.
Today's guest is the founder of two studios, Harlem Kettlebell Club, and most recently, the Harlem Method. Someone who I've had the pleasure of knowing and watching grow, not just as a coach, but also as a leader, a community builder, and a founder.
It just felt like home to be back in that park where I grew up, to then all of a sudden be able to help other people get in shape.
From teaching group fitness classes in local parks, to taking the leap from finance to go all in, and to now building and scaling multiple spaces in Harlem. He's not just building a business, he is building culture.
And they were like, look, we need energy on this block. East Harlem is not a lot of fitness. If anybody can bring some life here, I think you could be the person to do it.
While we're on the topic of money, how you navigate having a business that is affordable while sustaining your business.
Ooh, man.
Welcome to the Sweat and Equity Show, where we take you behind the scenes of the businesses of fitness and wellness entrepreneurs, how they're building, how they're growing and scaling. Today's guest is someone who doesn't just talk about impact, he lives it. Jahkeen, welcome to the Sweat and Equity Show.
Thank you.
I'm so excited you're here. Clearly we know each other, and it really has been really cool watching your journey. I remember working out with you in the park, Central Park, and just seeing you grow has been really dope. So what I want to do is actually want to run it back, because fitness was a side hustle at one point, right? You were working in finance, and I would love to hear from you just with you working in finance, what was fitness doing, or what gap was it filling at that time when you decided to pursue it while working full time?
Yeah, so I think fitness was obviously, that was me thinking about the life I grew up in, not having any sort of wealth. My mom grew up poor, we grew up poor. And so finance was like my way of getting some income and really just being able to take care of myself and give back to my mom, who worked so hard to get me, into this position. And I was missing what I always grew up with, the connection and community. I played a lot of sports. I grew up in the neighborhood, always friends and family. We hung out, and it was just, I wasn't getting any of that type of energy from the finance world. It was very much like helping the rich get richer, essentially, and getting a very small percentage of that, but also feeling like my soul wasn't touched, my spirit wasn't really high, and I needed to figure out what that was and what that looked like, and I didn't really know.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that I started getting myself back into shape, and then a couple of friends asked me to help them out, and that sparked something. I was like, okay, I'm finding something that I'm enjoying. Not necessarily want to be a trainer yet, but I'm enjoying it enough where I feel like I always like to help people. I feel like I've been good at inspiring and motivating others to kind of push boundaries and really kind of maximize their potential, even during times when I didn't feel like I could for myself. And just fitness ended up being that place for me where I could really push people, motivate them. And one person became two became three, then it became a boot camp in the park, and it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah. And what made you do it in the park specifically, right? Because that was the most public place.
Yeah, so Central Park, I know we've done some stuff, but the park that we really connected at was in Riverbank State Park in Harlem. So I grew up in that park. So from just growing up, different activities, to being a middle school, high school basketball team, we did all of our training and conditioning there, and it just felt like home to be back in that park where I grew up training, to then all of a sudden full circle be able to help other people get in shape. And weird thing about like the park is, and fitness, people don't think about training outdoors or think about going there to exercise, right? It's kind of like you go hang out, relax, maybe get some sun. But being able to add that piece was a big deal for me, because I got a lot of my friends moving and actually enjoying fitness when they just wouldn't at that point. And then while out there, you just, have people waiting for their kids that are in an activity, and they're just hopping into the session. And that's really just kind of how it took off. But again, it's very interesting the way things worked itself out, but it's just very exciting to see people enjoying what we're doing. And again, at that time, I didn't really know what I was doing per se, right? Kind of making some stuff up, but I knew that people were enjoying it. It was exciting, and there was another level I could get to.
Yeah. So clearly you started community. There was no thought of being a business. However, it became one. So take me through your thoughts, take me through that moment where you're like, you know what, this is something that I want to pursue. I want to go all in on this and help my community in this way.
Well, I think it started with well, my wife, shout out to my wife, because she's really the one who, like, I knew I had something, but I think I needed somebody else to see it as well. And, you know, and speaking to my friends, they saw it, but they didn't really see it in the way that I needed. I needed like somebody to, like, you know, they say put the battery in your back to get you to kind of go. And my wife worked in finance at the time. And I didn't really know what she did for a living, but she actually worked with small businesses to help them get financing loans and like projections. So this just kind of happened to work itself out. But we're sitting and we're doing the numbers. And she's like, why don't you just quit? I was like, what do you mean? So we started doing numbers and some math. She's like, this is what you make at work every month. This is what you're making as a side hustle, essentially, and you love it. And this is the only thing you talk about when we get home is fitness and the coaching and look at the results. She said, every time you bring up finance, you hate everything and everyone and you don't want to go, but you go because you obviously got bills to pay. So she's like, just quit. And I was like, I don't know about that, you know. But then I looked at the numbers and I'm like, oh, wow, if I just get, you know, X amount of clients, do a couple more classes, I'm actually in a good spot to not make as much, but comfortable enough where it'll give me some time to build and figure out what I want to do next. And I think I may have waited another 6 months to a year to like really save up to make sure I was covered and clear and jump ship. And it's the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah, I love that. And shout out to wifey having that knowledge of and giving you that confidence. Right? Yeah. Okay, so you jump ship and the next step was obviously you were teaching classes, local parks, but then you opened up your first studio in partnership. Yep. JTW Fit. I would love to speak about what was your vision for JTW Fit first, with yourself and your partner when you started it?
So I never thought about opening a brick-and-mortar initially, right? What happened was the park, obviously the weather changes. Now it's raining, it's snowing. People wanted more. And what it started as was just me finding any location that would let us kind of train there. So I was using dance studios, my high school let me come in and do some stuff in the gym. Any place that would have us, I would just show up with my wagon and my battle ropes and all that stuff and just get a good session in just to not have to cancel because people were loving the space and what we were doing. And my partner and I, we had a conversation and then we had an opportunity to collab with a physical therapy office, Physical Therapy of Harlem. They had a second location that was underutilized and they decided, let's do a collaboration, which ended up being a Harlem hit.
Okay.
So that was a collab. So that's kind of how we got our first like brick and mortar space. And from there, we just kind of built that out. We did some alterations in the space to give it more of a gym feel, adding like a rubber flooring, things of that nature, more equipment. And that was really at that point, I was like, okay, this looks kind of nice. It feels good. We have people coming in. We have a space, a home. Mm-hmm. It also just made us look a lot more professional. Right now we have a booking system. These are like all things we could kind of go into, but that professionalism and what they look like walking into an experience gave me the idea, like maybe this is the direction. Maybe we can have our own space in the neighborhood at some point. And, you know, fast forward, the studio ended up having a flood. And I think while that was, you know, a terrible thing to happen, it opened the doors for the thought of like, okay, maybe this is God saying we need to go a little bit bigger. Maybe we need to be on our own. Maybe we need to really expand and find a space that we can build from scratch and call it our own and pour a lot of energy and effort into it. And then that's where the first JTW Fit gym came about in 2019.
Okay. And what would you say you learned from that first location that was valuable for you when starting JTW Fit?
So the first thing I learned was community, right? It was community. It was how I went about engaging with the people, right? I didn't have to know everything about fitness at the time, but as someone who's just, again, I go back to basketball. I play point guard. I'm the floor general. I've got to get people in positions. I got to make sure everybody's okay, right? The team is good. I'm leading the game. I'm making the plays. I look at some of that stuff and I brought it into the fitness space. How am I connecting with everyone? How am I going to get everyone to buy into what we're trying to achieve, right? Knowing that everyone has their own goals, their own reasons for being here. How am I talking to you or pouring into you in a way where you feel like this is a place for me to be, that I want to call home and I want to consistently come to? And that's where being a human comes in, right? Scrap the training for a second. Connect with people, talk to them, get to know them, ask questions. And then after that, just make the experience as fun as you can, right? Because it's easier to come and do this work when you feel like you're having a good time, you're connecting with the members, you're excited about not missing because they're holding you accountable. It made my life a lot easier because they're talking to each other. I'll see you tomorrow at 6.
Yeah.
Don't miss. I get to come in and just coach and do what I'm really good at. So it was really about community and connecting with folks and then learning as I go.
What did you think building a gym when you did JTW Fit would require versus what it actually required? Because there's a lot of learning, I'm sure, that happened in that first time.
Yeah, well, when you collaborate and you walk into a space that you never had to organize to get, right? I didn't need to talk to an attorney. I didn't need to talk to a contractor or Department of Buildings. Like none of that stuff was on me because we collab with a physical therapy office that already went through that process.
Yeah.
So we're just coming in with equipment and getting a chance to just start from there.
Yeah.
So, it looks great when you're there because all those other numbers and things you have to account for, you just don't have to think about, never had to consider. So when you fast forward to 2019 and we're looking at our own location, now I've got to hire a broker and we've got to go look at a ton of spaces. We also have to check price. We have to connect with a real estate attorney, right? We have to talk to Department of Buildings, get codes and make sure we're not in any violations. You have to buy all the equipment from scratch. All the other expenses come around that you didn't have to think about or consider. And you're like, wow, this is a big investment. That didn't deter us from doing it, but you had to really buckle down and be like, okay, fitness is great. We're really good at that part. But now there's this business side that we never really had to pay attention to. And this is where it's a game changer, right? Because you could have a really good product, but without any business sense or mindset, that place is open and closed really quickly, right? Yeah. Because we haven't had the opportunity or had to pay attention to what it takes to sustain the business. We're just good at coaching.
Yeah.
So I really had to sit and go, okay, let's scrap coaching for a second. Let me stay up to date, but let me get on more calls. Let me get on more YouTube videos. Let me get on these like cohorts and learn what it means and what it looks like to run a business from that side. And so I spent a lot more energy and intention there because you only know what you know. And I wanted this to be something that would last. So I'm like, let me focus on that because I can always learn a different way to teach a squat. But at the end of the day, most people just need the first variation anyway.
Yeah. And even as you speak, what's standing out to me is clearly the lack of resources. Like the fact that you got to YouTube it, and I'm thankful for YouTube University, right? But I think what's also important, and I want to hone in on this, is you're creating a fitness space having grown up in Harlem. And let's talk about it being the first of its kind and just the weight that comes with that, right? What did your resources look like? Like access? It sounded like you were figuring things out on your own, but if you can kind of
I mean, I'll say I didn't have a me for me, right? I think right now I'm in a good enough space where I can be a resource for people. I've been here and done a good amount where I can be like, don't do this, don't do that. Here's something to consider, which is great. Starting out, this is 2013, I didn't really have a me for me. And not to go into too many specifics, but I reached out to someone during that time and they basically didn't want to help because they felt like I was a threat to what they had going on. There was another boot camp going on in the same parks and stuff like that. And so the collaboration wasn't there. And I know how I operate. And I'm like, while competition is a thing, I believe in supporting because there's enough people in Harlem that need all of us. Again, different mindset. But so I had to kind of, get it out the mud and just figure it out and make a lot of mistakes, which is fine. Because I think, some of those growing pains and learning, I don't think that we should go through this rite of passage just having to always struggle to get to A to B. But I'm also not against a little bit if I can find some lessons in it so that I never have to deal with that again and also be able to support somebody else who's up and coming trying to do the same things. But it's tough. Not a lot of resources, not a lot of finance, right? It's mostly loans, not a ton of grants out there for those who need. And we're just a very new business. So because we're so new, we haven't been in business for a long time. We don't have a ton of payroll to show. There's really not a lot of capital available because we're just so fresh. The business has been around for a long time, but in terms of being incorporated, we had only been incorporated for less than a year, right, on paper. So it ends up being very tricky when you're trying to figure these things out. And so it ended up being, thank God that I saved up a good amount of money and my partner saved up some money because we use our own, which is what I would never recommend. Don't use your own money if you don't have to. But we used our own and we felt really good about it because we controlled the entire narrative. We controlled everything that was happening. All the possibilities were on us. But but it becomes trickier because now like you're so invested in it that you can't screw up. And that's an added pressure and stress that you don't necessarily want to have when you just want to run your business successfully.
Yeah, yeah. And it was during JTW Fit where the pandemic happened.
Oh, yeah.
As well, right? So like, let's go into that because as I think about all the decisions you've had to make and what the challenges look like, you're bootstrapping, the pandemic hits. What did that look like for you all? Financial stress, operating your business, what had to change? What were some of the learned lessons there?
Yeah, so we opened the studio August 2019.
Okay.
6 months later, March 16th, 2020. It was a Tuesday.
Wow, I didn't even realize.
I'll never forget because I have a ton of trauma behind it. I was depressed, anxiety, all of the things. I was not in a good space. To only be open 6 months, to then have to close because of a pandemic. Obviously, no one knew this was going to happen. But again, when you've invested so much time and energy and you've got like a big following, our classes are waitlisted, we're looking at each other like it's showtime. Like we're about to blow up. And then you get this whole, all right, everybody go home. It was like a long detention,
Yeah.
But then in the middle of all that, we're also dealing with a potential eviction because we have some tenants that are complaining about like the noise, right, of the gym. And that's a deeper conversation around renting to a gym in a commercial building, and then we having to figure out how to reduce noise and obviously run our business in the best way possible, but also respect the tenants. So that became more of a headache than problem solving, to say. The owners just didn't want us there anymore. And so essentially we're dealing with a pandemic and an eviction process all in one. And that was hard. We obviously ended up leaving in 2021 after, a bit of a battle back and forth, just trying to figure out negotiations, what it could look like. But we ultimately realized the energy there was off. It was never going to be anything sustainable at that point. At some point, even if we did come to a resolution, we were probably going to be dealing with this again in a year. And so the ultimate decision was to negotiate some terms out and just leave the space. But pandemic, this was the most important part. This is the most exciting, I think. Despite death and all the things that went wrong during the pandemic, it was the best time for me personally. I got to rest. I hung out with my family. I got to get to know my wife again. We watched a lot of shows, Versus, you name it. We just kind of hung out.
Yeah.
TikTok blew up. So it was a good time. But I got to relax and rest, got my voice back because I was coaching a lot and almost like heal in a sense. I started therapy because I was like, this is a lot. I am going through it right now. I'm used to kind of toughing it out and next play. Right now, I'm like, I can't do it. So it gave me a chance to really restructure and reorganize and look at the business from the outside. Because when you're in it, you just can't really make corrections because you just got to coach. And I realized, like, there's so many holes in this process. There's so many holes in like what we do. Anybody on the outside looking in has no idea. But there's no scaling and growing when this looks like this. And, we had a conversation with my partner about, vision and, things that we need to change and processes and stuff like that. And it was eye-opening. It was like, we can't last like this at all. So we obviously took a pause and tried to figure some things out. But in the middle of all of that, we started the virtual program.
Tell us about it.
I've never taught on screen before. I'm an in-person coach, right? I like to be there. I got to feel correct. And the virtual stuff was really cool. So that was Tuesday, I said March 16th. That Saturday, I got a laptop, I got a Wi-Fi cable, a little mic, and got on screen virtually. Never done this before. And I'm on Zoom, and I had 65 people show up.
Wow.
Which gave me a whole lot of life because I'm like, the fact that I have no idea what I'm doing, and none of us have done it before, but you're willing to jump on this screen and help me figure it out and let me screw it up was amazing. And it just gave me a newfound respect for what I'm doing. It made me feel good because obviously people are invested and they trust that I'm going to figure it out because I always have. Was it fun every time? No, because I'm just like, I just can't be on the screen all day. I'm losing creativity. It's only but so many push-ups I can do. But people loved it. They showed up. I did a essential worker class one day that got 120 people. We did a big fundraiser. So I had 120 people on a Zoom screen. I'm swiping back and forth. I'm in the studio. You would think that I was coaching people in person if you look through this window. Yeah. Because I'm animated and no one else is in the room, but I probably look psycho. But everyone on the screen, they can feel the energy. Like he is coaching us as if he's in the space with us. That's what allows me to log on here every day and give this man my money, because he's on 1,000 all the time. I know exactly what I'm getting from him. He's consistent. He shows up. Even in the middle of, I'm sure he's going through hell, he's here. And so that energy always, I feel like it always comes back around to me and everything else, because I'm just always going to give my very best. If I'm not going to be involved in it.
Yeah, and I don't know you for doing anything less than your best.
Yeah.
So what also came from that pandemic, you got creative with the equipment you all had from the studio, and you began renting equipment. Let's talk about that, because that's a very creative way of also monetizing the community you've built and what their needs were during the pandemic.
Yeah, so this actually made the New York Times, which is pretty cool. Right, it was. So again, after not wanting to do all these push-ups, right, I was like, okay, well, people don't have access to weights. These people are showing up with like canned goods. Again, just making it happen, which was dope, because it was a lot of fun to just watch people figure it out. But I was like, we don't really need to figure it out. Let's figure something else out. So went into the studio. I obviously have all this equipment just sitting there, and I got the idea to just rent it all to the members. So we did a whole setup. You basically pay it online. We marked down who was paying for what. We had a system where they came in, social distancing, come in, get your equipment, and go back home. And then we started the virtual program up again. But now everyone's got, at least a pair of dumbbells in their hand or a kettlebell. And I can just create the workouts around what I know you have access to, because obviously we gave it to you. And I'm pretty certain, might misquote, we paid for probably 2 months of our rent, commercial rent, with the rentals. So that, again, we were in the middle of a pandemic. We weren't getting any concessions. Our landlord was like, you owe me regardless, which is not very respectful, during that time. But that's the situation we were in, and we had to pay. So it gave us 2 months of life. Again, while we were fighting to keep the space, we were like, well, let's continue to pay to make sure we're keeping this together. And 2 months of rent, right, is significant.
Yeah.
And it was, so I was happy to see that. I'm like, okay, that was again getting creative and having it, and it worked. And then we just kept with the virtual program, and it did really well. And it's crazy. Like, we were almost making the same amount virtually as we were in studio, because we just had so many people logging in. We started getting people from out of state. Connecticut had someone logging from out the country at one point. So it spread and became a thing of its own. And the biggest thing is because we made it a one-stop shop. So I reached out to a lot of the fitness professionals that I know, all of my friends. We ended up having strength classes. We had kettlebell-focused classes. We had yoga. We had mobility. We had a Pilates class. We had dance fitness, boxing, right? So we had a one-stop shop. So now it's like, come here and just do any and everything, right? You don't need to go on several different platforms trying to figure it out. We're going to give you an opportunity to be here. We had a weekly unlimited membership. You can come in and just log in and do as many as you want. So basically, it felt like they were in studio, like they normally would. And it was, I would say it was brilliant, because
it was.
I try to, you always try to keep it humble, but it was probably one of the best things I've ever done. It got creative with, and it kept us afloat, and it kept our members in as good a shape as possible, to the point where I've gotten messages even now, like, you have no idea what that just did for my mental health, right? In the middle of being at home and stuck and not being able to communicate and be around people. My mental health, despite the movement, yes, I stayed in a little bit of shape, but it was more so about my sanity, right? I was able to kind of control, this was the one thing I could control in my day, because I was just I felt like I was stuck. So that was a beautiful time, man.
I love that. And as a trainer, I can imagine just how that feeling was. It's a reminder and validation of what you do is absolutely worth it, even if it's hard.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so let's fast forward. You had that success virtually. You decided to open up another studio. And I think what the transition I want to make here is what I know of to be learned lessons you had in the in-between. So you entered this new studio independent, as an independent owner. So what I would love for starters is to speak to what were some of your learned lessons from being in partnership with opening up a studio versus choosing to do independently, if there's anything you could share there.
Yeah, so I think with my partner and I, we had a really great thing going. Like, the energy is there, the intention is there, the effort is there. I just think over time, alignment and values are just different. I don't think that's a bad thing. That's just where you are. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to grow. Mindsets are going to be different. And the approach and what we saw for the immediate and the future, which is very different. We're very different coaches, but like we love fitness. But I think it's, you have to move on when the alignment is not there, because ultimately we both have a vision and energy and intention around what we do. And we were going to be better off doing it separately. And, we both have spaces in Harlem that are crushing it and killing it. Yeah. And it's when you look back, it's like, yeah, we get to do what we want to do, how we want to do it. And everyone gets to succeed and have that success and move forward without having to figure out, who's doing what. And again, just trying to make it work when it probably just isn't working.
Yeah.
So alignment is a big thing. If you're going to partner, collab, anything like that, just ask the real questions, ask the hard questions from someone. If it doesn't work, it doesnn't work. There's no need to force it.
Yeah. I'm curious if there's any questions top of mind for anyone who does want to consider going into partnership with someone, whether it's opening up a studio or just starting a fitness business. Are there any key questions that are top of mind that you think is important?
I think vision is important, right? What do you see from this? Where do you want to go are very important things. And also just really narrowing down roles. Who's responsible for what, right? So that it's clear on decision making, right? If I have X amount of things I'm working on, you have X amount of things you're working on, we come have conversations, it's around these particular things and like holding each other accountable for showing up and doing the things that we agreed to. When it's kind of a free fall and it's just like, we have a business going and we're thriving, who is involved in what, who should be doing what, there's no conversation around it, nothing specific. So then it just becomes, a whirlwind of like, well, you could have, or I could have. And you don't need that in business. I think that it could screw up friendships, relationships, things of that nature, because no one's a bad person, but if you don't have any specific details, it's very hard. And then I think, beyond that is if you're looking for an investor or you're looking for someone who you want to come in and support the business, help it grow, when they see these holes, they're abort ship immediately, right? You guys don't have it together or you don't have it together. You don't know your numbers. You don't know your memberships. You have no idea what's happening in your business behind the scenes. Looks good, but I'm gonna go this way because this doesn't mesh with how I do business. So that's what my brain was and kind of thinking like, I really want to get some processes together. I love working hard, but I don't want to always be the person working hard. I wanted to always be able to hire coaches and have a team and allow me to work on business development and not be the main person in the room all the time. So I just thought about those things for myself and realized that I just needed to do something different to do that. And the Kettlebell Club really came from the virtual sessions, right? People just started to love the kettlebell training because I had started learning more, and I was, introducing them to different movements to the point where we went from virtual to when the world opened back up to going outside to the park. People are bringing their kettlebell to the park. We're doing kettlebell classes. And I just built like a nice following uptown because, we made kettlebells pretty much cool, to do them. And then that led to a smaller space. I got an opportunity from a woman who remembered us when we were on the east side prior to at Harlem Hit. She said she had a smaller space. She said, if anybody could figure it out, you could. And she would love for me to take it over and do something there. And it was an opportunity. And I was like, this is coming to me for a reason. And so I'm just going to jump on it and see what happens. And Kettlebell Club is turning 4 May 2nd, which is kind of crazy.
4th. So super congrats. So now I'm actually curious, having had a chaotic first experience with having space and a landlord, how do you feel like you navigated the Harlem Kettlebell Club and this offering from this gracious woman in the space? Did you have to look at contracts more closely? How did you navigate that so you felt more safe in the space?
Yes, so negotiations up front. I was very transparent about my last experience and what that looked like and what that did to me. And I was like, that's not the situation I want to have here. I would love to take the space over. But we just kind of sat and we really had a really just an open conversation. Yeah. I was like, what does that look like here? How can we resolve certain things? And can all these things be put into the lease, right? Those lease negotiations where we're coming to a conclusion of like, all right, this is what we're willing to do. This is what you're willing to do to make sure this relationship moves forward. Because, to be honest, I was like, you reached out to me.
Yeah, right.
Like, I was actually still depressed and dealing with my anxiety. I wasn't looking for a space yet, but since you reached out,
yeah,
I decided to pivot and get some energy back. And so I want to make sure that I'm covered and clear, and I want to feel very comfortable coming into the space. I don't want to hear from you 6 months later about noise and things of that nature. And if I do hear, like, we have some things in writing that we're going to go step by step to figure it out. Yeah. And she was all in. The building board, they loved what I had to say. We had a whole interview process. Obviously, they remember me from being over there already, so they knew how full those classes were. And they were like, look, we need energy on this block. East Harlem is not vibrant. It's not a lot of, like, healthy food choices. It's not a lot of fitness. If anybody can bring some life here, I think you could be the person to do it. And they believed in me probably more than I believed in myself, because I had just dealt with so many things. And 4 years later, we have no issues. New York City, buildings always, there's a leak or something like that every so often, but that's normal standard stuff. But outside of that, they've been super supportive. They take classes or they refer us. We're always in their newsletters, things of that nature. And they really commend us for a great job, and they got the chance to watch it evolve as well. And even the board president, she's like, you're really creative with this space. Like, it's such a small space, but because initially I didn't want it, because I said it was too small. And then she's like, well, you've done so much with the space, and I love how you, like, kind of architect this place, and you build stuff up, and you have outskirts, and you have the space open. So it's nice to hear that from her, because again, 4 years it goes by like this.
Yes,
but it's been a blessing in there, and I could talk about Kettlebell Club forever. Probably one of my favorite spaces. It's just the energy and just watching it evolve over time, and watching all the new faces come in. It's an energy you can't match it anywhere else, man.
Yeah. And one thing on the lawyer front, well, did you have a lawyer, actually? Because you mentioned that there were things you had in the contract agreement that led to this very positive partnership. So that's what's standing out too, where, like, you had conversations that made you more comfortable in the space. And as a result of you having more comfort, you created what is giving hometown hero. It's giving a space that has changed the culture for the neighborhood on the East Side. Did you have a lawyer for that process?
So originally, and this is where growth comes in, right?
Okay.
And learning, we didn't have a lawyer on retainer when we first started. Again, this is, you know what you know. And we had a great vision. We had a great gym. We had members. And we just up and got going. I had lawyer friends, right, who I reached out, hey, can you look over this? Thinking that would be enough. And it's not enough, right? Because you need somebody that specifically lives in that world and is your lawyer, who's going to take a lot more time to really run through all the things. I'm asking friends who clearly have jobs. They have other contracts to look at. So they're doing it to the best of their ability, supporting, because they obviously want to see us build and grow. And they come to the studio. So that's learning, right? Is, you need to have your own lawyer who's for you every single time. You can reach out to them. So Kettlebell Club, we end up getting an attorney. So now I'm like, okay, I have somebody specific for me who's going to help me look over this stuff. And then you fast forward to Harlem Method, I have an attorney now I can call. I need your help. This is what's going on. And so again, growing pains. We look back, of course, we probably should have had some representation. But when you're young and energetic and you got this thing going, sometimes you skip steps. And I can admit that part is like we probably skipped a few steps. But again, that comes back to the pandemic when I talk about the holes in the processes. You take a second and you're like, yeah, this probably wouldn't have happened, or maybe it would have, but we would have been better prepared for the eviction process had we had somebody, to represent us. So it's a lot, but I will never not have somebody on call for the rest of my life, because I refuse to get screwed over for the same thing twice. I'm all for learning, growing on new things, but I think at this point, I know what I know. Those things shouldn't happen again. And so you got to be ready for the other stuff. Yeah.
And it does take sometimes pain for you to make it a priority, right? Where like, okay, money's involved. Money's involved. Okay, so this is a perfect segue. This is a very timely conversation because we have the Harlem Method you just mentioned. And what I'm most excited is you are truly in a place where you are building different. So I want to go into just kind of what that bridge has been between having the Harlem Kettlebell Club to now having the Harlem Method, where you are building differently. and what it looks like to have systems, what it looks like to think of the space, the brand, the people you hire. So I want to go knee deep into that to understand what were some of those learned lessons from the first two that you feel like you are entirely doing differently as you built this fresh. So let me take a step back. New space. Was this a case where it was another job, we love what you're doing in the community, or did you have to actively look for the Harlem Method space? Different process?
So different process. I think this one was kind of cool. 2022, so one of my clients is in real estate, and we just had a conversation about next space, what it could look like, how much size I would need. And it was just like a regular conversation. Like, I'm looking for like 2,000 square feet. I want it to look like this. And just really just regular conversation. And then probably a year, 2 years later, he calls me. He's like, hey, Jah, I was just so happened to be in Harlem. I'm on 129th Street. I saw this space. I think you got to come see it. Like, you got to come see it. Are you in the neighborhood right now? I'm like, again, not looking. It always happens when I'm not looking. Because I was looking for a while. I got turned away a few times on different space that I put in offers for. So at some point, I kind of got a little discouraged. I'm like, you know what? I'll just wait. It'll come to me at some point. I think I'm focusing on it too much. And so that's why nothing is kind of panning out. So I left it alone, and then I get a call from him. I go see the space as soon as I walk in.
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, this is the one. And I just immediately saw what every room was, what it could look like. My brain just started working. And as soon as my brain starts working, it's over. Because that's how I know what I want. And at that point, if I tell myself I'm doing it, I'm doing it. So I call my broker immediately. Hey, are you available? Can you come over? We finally go see the space together. She walks in and is like, yeah, this is the one. Because she had been helping me all this time. And I was kind of hoping she didn't say that, because I'm like, I don't know that I'm ready to do this. So maybe if she says no, I'll fall back. And she was excited.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. All right, let's put the offer in. So we start negotiating back and forth. The owner was excited. He didn't waste any time either. He putting the deal together. And next thing you know, we ready to go. So, I think I had a vision for it. I knew what I wanted. I just wasn't aggressively going after it.
Yeah.
And it really still, again, took somebody else to remember me or remember a conversation or want to remember it enough to call me back and be like, hey, I remember what we spoke about 2 years ago.
Wow.
Here's what I saw. I think you should take a look. So I always look back and, like, again, things are supposed to happen when they're supposed to happen. I think God knew I wasn't ready 2 years ago when I was looking anyway, because I had just opened Kettlebell Club. So I probably didn't need to be trying to manage 2 brand new spaces at once. Now, 4 years later, after Kettlebell Club is open, a lot easier to jump into a new space because Kettlebell Club is running. It can operate without me being there. I only teach twice a week right now. Oh. I have coaches. So I think this is God being like, we're not going to let you jump the gun again and make mistakes. I'm going to force you to be a little more patient and get your ducks in a row before you go into this big investment, because this new one is a big investment. And it's the hardest work I've done. It's going to be great. But at home some days, I'm like, okay, I just gave like everything I got to this space. I'm tired, but the work's got to be done. And so there's no letting up now.
Yeah. I'm going to run it back, because what I don't want to downplay is how hard it is to get to a place where you can open up a new studio, because you've created systems and having the right people to make Harlem Kettlebell Club operate on its own. So what are some things that you felt like you did right to allow for that space for you to create the next? Because it was a 2-year difference, right? Before you got to a point where you felt like you were the most ready to start.
Yeah, I think the main thing is trust. I trust me more than I trust anybody else, right? I think most people do. But also knowing that in order for me to be successful, I need help, which is something I have a hard time asking for. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's a little bit ego, or maybe it's just I know how I would show up for somebody, and recognizing that everybody might not show up that way for me. So I'd rather not deal with it. And so I give myself all the work, because again, I know I'm going to get it done. And I'm not counting on somebody else to fall short. Not a great way to live, right? You got to let people in. You got to let them mess up, right? They can correct things. No one's going to be perfect. And it took me a while to learn that. So Kettlebell Club, I overhired. I think I brought in like 8 or 10 coaches. I was like, everybody can work here. And all good people I vetted, but I went from doing every class myself, probably 15, 20 classes a week plus personal training, to, okay, I'm only going to teach 2 classes and I'm just going to like hire everybody. Not realizing, okay, now I've got 20 personalities to deal with and I got to learn I've never even had a team before outside of sports. I've never had to manage people, adults, their egos, their personality, their needs. And I'm like, this is a lot. Yeah. I wasn't really prepared for this. And yeah, while the sports and the basketball background is great, this was a different beast, because when I was younger, we're still teenagers, we're learning. I'm dealing with adults who are like really set in their ways. I know exactly what I'm doing, not doing, and trying to get them to buy into what I'm trying to build, and make them feel good about doing the work to help. Yeah. And I made a lot of mistakes. I think that's part of growing pains as well. I'm not gonna say I'm a phenomenal manager. I'm not a great boss all the time because I'm learning as I go, but I'm someone who will always apologize, correct, and keep it going because, again, I'm not supposed to be perfect. So we'll say Kettlebell Club was my first instance of having a team, coaches, a staff. I learned a lot from that experience that allowed me to, when opening the Harlem method, my processes are a little more refined. I know exactly what I'm looking for, what the contract should look like, what the policy should look like, what the expectations are for everyone, who needs to be where, what the role entails, things like that. Now we've hammered that home, documentation, everything's legal, not legally bound, but everything's signed. We have it documented where if we need to have a conversation, we're coming back to the agreement, not on like what we may have said at some point in a conversation. So those things, again, those are safety nets, but also just, from a strategy standpoint, from a sanity standpoint, I'm speaking to very specific things and not having to like, well, maybe we should, or we could have done, or did I say this, or did you say? Yeah, it's right here. Easier for everyone also, right? Everyone knows what the expectations are for themselves. I think that's really the main thing. And then in terms of brand, coming up with this concept so Harlem Method is basically, it's like everything combined that I've ever taught. So I started with a lot of HIIT training, faster paced stuff, circuits. And then I moved into more traditional strength training, wanting to get people stronger, HIIT training and weight loss, throw that out the window. Let's actually get stronger, be more functional humans. And then the Harlem Method is like a combination of, we got conditioning on one side where you can get your aerobic system up, you can train your capacity. And then the other room is dedicated strength training. This is where we want to get really strong. I notice a lot of places, studios, they try to combine both into one class. I don't necessarily believe in it. I think, one method or one thing falls to the wayside a lot in those classes. If I'm running a treadmill forever and I'm trying to strength train, right, I'm probably fatigued. So I'm not getting all of what I want to get out of it. So I decided to separate it. And when we offer strength and conditioning, now you can make a schedule for yourself that allows you to do both and get better at both. And then the recovery piece, that's just something I've been needing for myself. I'm getting a little older.
That'll do it.
Hips don't be working the same sometimes. Shoulder a little jammed up. And I'm like, okay, what am I doing outside the gym to recover better? Whether it's my sleep, mobility, stretching. So we're offering mobility and restorative yoga on Sundays as like our restoration day.
Okay.
I have a room that has compression boots and vibration and foam rollers, Theraguns, things like of that nature, or vibration guns, so that people can start to learn what recovery is. And then outside of what we can offer, we're partnering with anybody who we align with who has recovery services such as massage or stretch or meditation, mindfulness. That's a recovery for myself, I believe in. Like, you're recovering here, but is your mental good, right? Are you able to go and do what you need to do, right, with clear thoughts and things like that? So collaborating has become a big thing. And we're building that recovery space out as we talk to more people and figure out what that can look like. So it's just really just like a lot of growth, a lot of mistakes, but also realizing I wanted a one-stop shop where people can get the best of like what they actually need. I love fitness and I love movement. I love all the things that are out there. But for me, I'm like, most people just need to be a lot stronger. Yeah. Right? They need to be able to go up a flight of steps without feeling like they ran a marathon, right? Let's get some conditioning. And what are we doing to be able to show up more consistently? So what does that recovery look like? Yeah. And outside of that, it's still my same energy. It's still my same training style. It's still my value with community and getting people together and making sure they're having a great experience and making it fun, whether it's the music, the banter, all that stuff. None of that changes. We're just in a new brick and mortar.
Yeah. I think what's standing out to me, and I would love your thoughts, your thought process. You have studios that are technically niche, right? So you have one that's focused on kettlebells, and then the other is strength training conditioning. What has been your thoughts on not creating an even further one-stop shop, right? Like, I know you had mentioned during the pandemic, we had dance fitness, we had yoga. I'm curious, what do you see for the value for anyone listening who wants to have a studio? Different modalities exist. Fitness is ever changing and ever evolving. As you think about these spaces, you do got to think long-term. What gives you the confidence to hone in on a niched modality? And in Harlem Method case, there's a few in there, but I'm curious what your thought process is.
So the one thing about the fitness industry, which I've recognized, and I think you can almost do whatever you want these days,
Yes,
right?
yes.
That's a whole nother conversation, but I've seen so many hybrids of everything you want to combine. And again, I think if it's movement and people are enjoying it and they are not getting hurt, then yeah, we can argue there's a place for a lot of things. For me, niche doesn't necessarily mean I don't expand. It just means this is how I'm like kind of starting out. So Kettlebell Club, for example, was kettlebell specific. All I have is kettlebells to start. But as we got more people in the door, I also know that Harlem doesn't have a lot to offer in terms of training. So I have the opportunity to make a quick pivot and be kettlebell focused and still blend in some other things. So we ended up bringing in barbells for some training. We ended up bringing in sandbags, steel maces, agility equipment, battle ropes. Right now, I can create conditioning classes around the bell. The bell is used a little bit differently in this case, right? You're not lifting heavy. It's more about endurance, right? How long you can go. So that can be a lighter bell. Strength training, heavier bells. If we want to add in some barbell work with kettlebell, now with mixed modality, multimodality, now you're learning how to utilize a lot of different tools under one roof. So now we're becoming an even bigger resource to you because you're going to be more proficient with a lot of different things when you go to the gym. For me, it's very important for people to understand how to move, not be attached to dumbbell, barbell, kettlebell.
Yep.
A squat is a squat is a squat. Your body doesn't know what you're using. It knows what to do with load, if it should build muscle, and so on and so forth. So if you know how to move, you can plug and play. And now the gym or wherever you are becomes like your playground, essentially. So I want people to learn, like, here's all the things we can do, and insert. And now when you're on your own, you can use whichever one makes more sense for you. Or if you're on a vacation, for example, and they only got kettlebells, you can get a workout in, right? I think that's the main piece is I want people to want to be in my spaces because there's value and they're learning a lot, but you shouldn't need me at some point.
Yeah.
You just want to be here because I'm getting all this stuff, so why would I leave? But ultimately, I want you to be able to go and make a workout for yourself. So that's where like the expanding comes in and giving people more. And also those classes, they took off because not everyone is a diehard kettlebell fan. But if I say, hey, you're going to use it a little bit for the class, from a business standpoint, I can get more people to come in because now it's just a part of the class. You don't have to just like for 1 hour of this bell. So that's kind of the vision there. And then with my coaches and really starting to figure out what they were good at. You know, one coach I had used to really go to steel mace. Like, that could be a thing. Cool, let's bring in some steel maces. Let's do a demo class and see what happens. That became fun. Now people are learning. It's something new. One of the ways to get more people in the door is you start adding new things, they start to come more. They're going to start to spend more because like, okay, I don't want to miss out on like FOMO. Sandbags, we added those in, right? That's a totally different type of way of training strength and endurance. People love those, some people hated them, but we got enough demand where it warranted getting a few of them because the class got a little bit bigger. So I think that's really the main thing is like start where you are and then expand, right? The Harlem Method, strength training is strength training, right? I don't think that goes anywhere. I have all the things, the dumbbells, the barbells, the trap bars. That doesn't go anywhere. My conditioning room, the way I designed it, is very open. So I can add, subtract at any point, and I can reinvent that room, right? At any point, because I didn't buy every piece of equipment in the world, I bought what I needed right now, knowing that, like, again, I get bored too. So I'm probably going to pivot and change something as well. And the recovery is just, that's more alignment and just partnerships. Yeah. Recovery can change just by who we bring in and how they present some of the same things. So I say all to say, you got to have a vision and a plan. Don't try to do everything because then no one knows what you do, right? It's like, oh, you teach 8 modalities. Like, what are you good at? Be good at something And then from there, add what's necessary, again, also based on what people are asking for potentially. This is where surveys come in. This is where talking to the members come in. Like, I'm very big on asking questions, not just like designing something based on what I want, because the gym is not for me, right? It's for them. So if they love it, I love it too, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, which is why I would say you are committed to your community, Ja, which makes me think about, as you talk about having people who are teaching those classes, I would love for you to speak to the version of Ja who's a coach to now the version of Ja who truly has had to step into the light of CEO and founder, right? You're not teaching as much classes. You are needing to think strategically at every waking moment. What are some of those changes that were key for you in now operating, like truly being an operator?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's not fun. I'm gonna tell you that. It's like, I'm gonna be very transparent. This is it's the hardest work I've ever done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In the middle of, wife and a daughter.
Right.
So I got a lot of new over this last year and a half. It's the hardest work I've ever done. Trying to shift gears from being in the class. I still love to teach, right? So I'm not gonna stop teaching right now, but I know I need to do less of it to work on business development and what this looks like a couple years from now. Like we said earlier, letting go is the biggest thing. Still have trouble with it, right? I'm still gonna micromanage to a certain extent, but really because the Harlem method is new, so I'm in let's correct immediately and fix immediately. So I can't take a backseat. Now infancy stage, you got to let people screw up, but you also have to correct it fast, right? So that these mistakes aren't becoming normalized. We're now 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line. Now this is a problem. So I think that's the one thing I'm very good at is not letting things not letting things go for a long period of time before I bring it up. Like, let's just get to this is what we're doing, how we need to do it. Hey, this is what happened. Fixing things immediately. And then we go, right? I think, I was talking to somebody the other day, people have trouble having tough conversations, difficult conversations. Those don't need to break up the relationship. They just need to happen because we're both trying to get from A to B. And so just getting back in alignment and making sure that we all know what's happening it has been big in this space. And that's just learning from Kettlebell Club, right? Just letting a lot of things go, right? And it'll be fine. They'll figure it out. They won't.
That's your job.
They won't, right? It's my job as a leader to put people in position to win, right? And something I'm working on now is also just giving more positive affirmations when people are doing things well versus the only time you hear from me is when things are going wrong, right? That's been something that's probably upbringing, that's coaching, right? My coach would be like, you're supposed to work on your jump shot. You're supposed to work on your dribble. You said you love basketball. So you never gave us a lot of that, good job for working on stuff. And I took a lot of that with me because it's of course you should come on time. Of course you should be nice to the clients, right? Stuff like that. But people need to hear some positivity. And so I'm really trying to focus on that type of stuff. And I think that's been helpful. But getting out the way, asking for more help than I ever have in my life.
Wow.
Right? I just can't do it all. I don't know it all. And quite frankly, to get to the next phase, I need some people that have energy and passion, and who live in that world, right, of where I want to get to. I've been doing a lot on my own and have found success in it, and I think that's just really hard when it's your baby and you're like, I can't let anybody screw this up.
Yeah.
And part of the growth is you got to screw it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
What would you say is the number one thing you let go of that has allowed you to have more freedom to play a big part in creating Harlem Method?
Yeah, just the hiring. So studio manager, I have operations, facilities person. I have Harlem Method, I have front desk staff now, which is very new. That's the first time, right? So people who can handle the front desk area while coaches can coach, right? Just giving people specific things to focus on. Being able to just check in with front desk around what's going on, their first point of contact. What are you seeing? What are the members saying? Getting them to do it so I don't have to be in the space, right, with them because I can be home either working or also just hanging out with my daughter sometime because we have our Monday, Thursdays where we go out and I pop in just to make sure we good, but I'm like, let me leave and let you guys work. But again, just those things are really helpful. Knowing who I can lean on somebody, knowing that they know exactly what needs to be done. I know that it's taken care of. It's just a sigh of relief, man. Like to not, because otherwise I'm just anxious all day long.
Yeah.
I don't show it, but I'm just anxious and I'm stressed and I'm thinking about, is the studio going to fail tomorrow, right? And it's not. But when you don't allow anybody to help you and you give yourself all 75 things to take care of, yeah, of course you're going to feel like that. And it's overwhelming. And I think it spills over into relationships. It spills over into the family. Again, I'm stressed, you stressed, we all stressed because like I'm showing up like this. So you're probably like, okay, he's in a mood. And I don't want that for people because, you know, I'm pretty chill. This is how I always want to be. Fitness for me has always been fun. It never felt like work up until now, but I'm trying to get back to it feeling like what it used to. And that's going to take me getting out of the way and letting some people do what they need to do to support. Because the people I have, they want to be here. They want to support. They have really good energy behind it. And it's just me all right, you got it.
Yeah.
Don't call me unless like there's something you don't know.
That's right.
Or just figure it out. As long as you don't burn the place down, I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah. And let's talk about the stress and overwhelm that comes with not only starting a studio, launching a studio, but operating. I don't think it gets talked about enough of what's required, how much hours per week sometimes you feel like you are on, right? You are filling those gaps to get the right people to help with operation front desk, but you're still on. Can you talk about the realities of moments of burnout? Have you ever had time where you're like, I can't do this? And in those moments, what got you through finding any better bit of balance?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I wanted to quit last week. I'll keep it real with you. I wanted to quit last week. I was, you start looking at numbers. You start looking at members. You're like, okay, this is cool, but we need more members. You start doing math. I got rent. I got payroll coming up. Do we have enough to cover, right? Those are things behind the scenes that people don't see. They see people in the door, a class full, but the math behind what you need to actually succeed, get in the black, move forward, scale, that number is different from visuals, right? And I think people don't get that part. There's a lot of math going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of process. So right now, for example, yes, my staff and coaches can do the job, but I'm still reinventing and figuring out standard operating procedures based on all the things that are happening in the space. We came in with a vision, but as people come in, you start to realize, okay, this needs to change. This should become this. So there's a lot of that happening right now. And again, that's going to take a second, right? Again, we're 6 weeks open. So maybe by month 3 to 6, right, we'll have something in place that's concrete, and then we just flow. But right now, there's a lot of updating. The handbook. Oh, we got to add this. Oh, we can remove that. So I think that's the growing pains in the beginning is you're going to have to do a lot of that with your staff and members because, again, they're new to this as well. The excitement is there, the energy is there, but they can't do anything without, they don't know what to do, right? Or they're going to come up with what they think they should do. It could be right, it could be wrong, right? But I can't penalize them for something I never told them, right? They don't have anything they can lean on or a list that they can refer to. So getting that stuff down is the most important. But it's a lot of stress. And I think what people have to understand is you got to be willing to do that part of it, though, right? I just love fitness. Yeah. I tell people all the time, just because you love fitness, just because you are an amazing barber, just because you love to cook,
it's true,
does not mean at all that you should open up a storefront.
That's right.
Right? And I'll tell you this, and this is as somebody who loves their own spaces, if you can be successful in your business without ever opening a brick and mortar, I would highly recommend it.
Tell us more.
If you can grow your brand, make all your money, do all the impact, utilizing someone else's space, right? Or however it is you do, if it's online, and it keeps your energy, it keeps your time, right? You can manage all those things, and you don't know for a fact that the brick and mortar is going to make things better, probably not the route to go because, again, that just becomes more expensive. Right? It's way more expensive. It gives you more things to consider. More money has to be made now because now you owe somebody for the space, right? If you're used to doing it by yourself, I think there's a business model where you can train and be the trainer by yourself. You don't need to hire. But if you want to hire, that's an added expense.
Yeah.
So you got to account for, I need people, I need to cover overhead now, I've got utilities now, right? People aren't thinking about all of that goes into it, right? Now I have Department of Buildings, there's signage, there's things in my space that I have to have so you don't get violations. It becomes a whole lot more than this passion that you have every day. And if you're not willing to do that part, learn that part, or have that become the priority, the business is going to fail. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely going to fail because it's nothing crazy than talking to somebody that doesn't know any of their numbers. You don't know where your money's coming in and out. You don't know whether you're profitable. You know how many members you need to get to ABC, right? You're not very goal specific. I tell people all the time, one of my friends, coach, I was like, what do you want to make this year? It's like, oh, I'm trying to do better. I'm like, better what does that mean, right? If you tell me you want to make $300,000 this year, then you should be able to look at your services and what you offer, how much it costs, and then have a breakdown of how many people or whatever services I need to get to that number. Because if you don't, you're just going out there blind every single day, hoping that somehow you open your account and something's there.
Yeah.
So everything is about processes. Everything is about systems. I'm not perfect. I'm still, figuring out some stuff myself, but I've learned and seen a lot just from those little changes that I've been able to make. The vision is a lot clearer. I can set very intentional goals and go after that. I need 2 people. Just get 2, right? Not like I hope I get 10. No, I want 2 people. And the way when you set the intention like that and you say it that way, it's easier, it's more accessible, right? I can go and get it because it's just 2. Right? I think most people, they have this big vision. It's kind of like when you think about people with like weight loss and stuff. Mm-hmm. I want to lose 100 pounds, right? Sounds great.
It's not realistic.
But what are we doing in week 1 and week 2 on the way there? If we can't figure out week 1, week 2, 100 pounds becomes even further away and further away and further away. So just get down to those like the really granular details and see that happen. And then you get into a system, you get a rhythm, and then that process becomes easier because you're like, oh, this isn't so bad. Mm-hmm. Versus like, I got to get there and I've done nothing in the middle to help support that. So it gets tricky, man.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of money, I would love to know how you navigate being community driven and having a business that is affordable while sustaining your business, because that is hard. So how do you think about that?
So I'll start with a conversation I just recently had. Okay. And this was one I needed to hear. Mentor of mine, he said, you've done a lot in this community. You've done more than probably anybody else will ever care to do in this community on a lot of fronts, from your scholarship foundation to fitness to all the things you've been building to the collaborations. Like, 2 things can exist at once. You can be all about your community because you're already here, right? No one else is here. You're here. You're doing the work. At this point, you need to charge your worth, make your money, and operate from a place of abundance, so that when you're pouring in, you're pouring from a place where like, I've taken care of me and my family. Mm-hmm. We're good. Now I can really help you because I know that I'm good. A lot of what I've been doing is trying to be so affordable and so community-based that like, I'm not struggling, but I shouldn't be in the place that I'm at. I should actually be a lot more successful and be taking care of myself and be taking all the trips and doing all the things that other people are able to do because I've earned the right to. Mm-hmm. Versus like trying to always make sure that every single person can come into my doors. And that was a hard thing. That was hard to hear that because I'm like, no, like I know what I want to do and I know what I've been put here to do. Yep. But he's like, yeah, you started out with $10 classes in the park. It don't get no better than that. Whoever didn't capitalize on that, that was their fault, right? You can't be $10 classes anymore. Everything's more expensive. You've invested in this new space, from your lighting to the equipment to everything that you poured in to make this space. That comes with the cost, and it wasn't cheap. And you need to be able to make that back and be profitable, because then you can open Studio 2 and 3, and then you can do more of the events and all that, expanding. But it can't happen if you're struggling while everybody else gets to kind of come in and thrive. And so that was a really hard convo. And so, again, the Harlem method is not super expensive, but it's definitely the most expensive space that I have now. And, I think I've also recognized the space doesn't, as much as I want it to be, it just can't be for everybody. And I have to get out of my way with that. I think there's other opportunities where I can do things to support people who can't afford to take advantage of membership, but just do that because it doesn't take away from anything. I'm still doing the work, but I'm just doing it in a different way based on where I'm at in my life now.
Yeah.
And so that was really, again, tough to hear, but since I've kind of bought into it, it feels a lot better. It's like a lot of weight off my shoulders because I feel like I'm trying to hold up Harlem alone, right? And it's like, no, somebody else has $10 classes now as well. Like they can collab and you guys can do something together to balance it out and make sure that you're making it accessible, but it doesn't need to be you every single day anymore.
Yeah. And you heard this guidance from someone else, right? Was this something you felt already along the way, or did you need that person? Because I'm just thinking about how the version of you has changed so much. What has guidance and coaching looked like for you to be able to comfortably speak the way you just did, like the conviction, like somebody else can do it. It doesn't happen overnight. Yeah.
Well, this is the first time I've said that out loud to someone, right? And I think this is the best time to do it because I'm also working on just being a lot more vocal about all the things. I probably wouldn't have. I would, I was like, I can't do that. Like, I think it's very important to know where you are in your life and what is needed to succeed and move forward. And again, for lack of words, you can't go backwards. Right? I can't go back to 2016 me when 10 years later, I'm a new version of myself and I'm offering new things. I have more knowledge. I have more skill set. Like I deserve to thrive and take advantage of the opportunities that have been afforded to me and be in a better position. And so that's going to come with alignment. It might be the thing. I'm not going to connect with every single person anymore. But again, it doesn't take away from anything I've done, right? That person who sees me and is like, you're expensive, doesn't know the journey it took for me to be able to get here to charge this, right? They don't see the time, the energy, the certifications, the ups and downs, the pandemic. Like they don't know any of that stuff. They just come in and they see a price that they don't necessarily want to pay versus like, I can understand why he charges this. And that took a lot. And because I had somebody come in and have some awkward words for me about my pricing. Okay. And I was like, okay. And it felt great to not argue.
Yeah.
Like, no, I get it. I understand. There's other spaces in the neighborhood that have fitness and stuff like that. And I think it was she may have been wanting me to match the energy a little bit to like maybe bring the price down. I was like,
but you're like, no.
No.
Yeah, but there's a version of you that has to get to that point, to. And
also not taking it personal. Like I ain't gonna say that. I took it a little personal.
Of course you did.
Because I'm thinking about my time and energy. So I did take it personal, but not enough wasn't gonna like rip her a new one or have a huge back and forth about it. But we had a conversation which was healthy, I think, about pricing and why and what. But you're gonna get that a lot. But again, you have to recognize if you keep changing and pivoting your stuff every time somebody has an opinion, you don't have a brand, you don't have a business, it might as well be community service at that point.
Yeah.
Because you don't control a single aspect of what you're trying to build. So you got to be really, and no is a complete sentence, right? You just gotta say it.
That part. Are you, so when it comes to funding for the Harlem Method, are you still bootstrapping or have you gotten any bit of funding? How is that looking different as we talk numbers?
Yeah, so some of my own funds, which again, if you can avoid it, please do, right? You don't want to be putting yourself in a predicament where you've got your life things happening and your money's tied into your brand and business. I would say if you can find fund, do it. If you can get an investor, obviously do it. I was lucky enough to have a family friend who saw my vision, saw my purpose, and was like, hey, I can help in this regard, in whatever this level is. And that was helpful enough to get it off the ground. Do I need more funding? Of course. We could always use more funding. So that's what I'm looking at now, is just figuring out who can I, have a conversation with and sit and go, look, this is the vision. Is this anybody that wants to build, with me in that way? But yeah, when you're building something like this and where you want it to go, cash is king, right? There's no amount that you need a lot, right? And you want to have cushion, especially in a new place that's opening in an infancy stage where payroll's high, rents are high, members are starting to come in, right? There's a very tug of war that's happening with I got to maybe pull from my funds to just make sure my employees are covered, knowing that, business is going to pick up, but there's a lot of that stuff that goes on. But again, that comes back to the numbers we talked about. Like, you got to know that part, because if you don't, open and close really quickly. Yeah.
But I'm curious, so you know your numbers. I'm curious, what pushback are you getting as you're being in places where you're trying to get more capital? What do you believe is a barrier for you with getting that yes?
So I will say this, for fitness, and at least in my experience, and I've been looking, there's no grants, right? There's not a lot of just funding for fitness. I've seen it all during the pandemic. Every restaurant got tons of funding. Let's keep all the restaurants open. Let's keep people eating and drinking, right? And cool. But where's the movement, right? You're asking us to go home and be sedentary and not do anything, right? For the most part, can't go outside. But you want people to eat and order and dine and things of that nature, which they don't really, another conversation, but they don't need to. You could cook at home and have healthier options and make your own food. It's a good time to do it. But no, we're going to fund that and not really fund fitness. Or again, if they are funding fitness, it was, and I'm appreciative, but $500 here, $1,000 there. Again, I appreciate it, but that's not moving the needle at all in terms of what was needed to do. Like, that might cover one bill. So everything's a loan, right? And loans, while they are helpful, it's still an added stress because I have to pay someone back, right? And whatever the time frame is that the terms that they create. So while I'm trying to cover payroll and expenses, now I have this loan out, and I have these other expenses that are coming in, and the toilet now doesn't work, and the HVAC went out, right? All of that will destroy your mind in the middle of chaos, like, where you're just trying to figure it out, and then something else happens. So I don't know if there's going to be more grants to support fitness. I don't know that, there's a care for it in that way. But ultimately, if it's not a grant, then it's some funding, or someone who's believes in the vision, believes that Harlem deserves more, right? And would love to be a part of my vision, what I've been watching and what I've been trying to grow this entire time.
Yeah. And I mean, you creating the first of these studios has its own weight. I'm sure it's something that you're incredibly proud of, but also comes with needing to explain the importance of it. Are there any battles that you have fought when it comes to people believing that it's necessary in the space, or do people know that it's important to have? It's more of...
I think the common sense of it is people know that fitness is needed. People know that they need to move, right? I think people are naive sometimes, but they know, like, you should eat better. I think that, at least in my experience, people don't value fitness in the way that they should, right? They look at it more of like, they don't look at it as, I get to train, I get to work out, I get to improve myself. It's like, I'm in this season where, like, I'm working out a little bit, right? And they prioritize, and again, I'll never tell anybody how to spend their money, because that's on you, but what they'll spend on and what they'll ignore is typically fitness, right? A lot of what I've seen is, I'll spend $350 on a bag or a trip or shoes. And again, I'm all for, if you got it and you love it, you should enjoy it. But don't like nickel and dime yourself on something that's, like, long-term going to help you out. Right? I think that's the hardest part. And so even in building this in my neighborhood, while I do have a lot of people that come and enjoy it, there's just so many more people that I can affect that just won't re-budget or try to figure out how to make this a thing, even if it's for 2 months, 3 months. All right, just make it a thing for a second and then realize, wow, like, I found a lot of value in that. I got so much better. Let me re-budget maybe and figure out how to make this more consistent for myself. And consistency looks different for everybody. I mean, even if it's once a week, right? That's a commitment that you've never had. And so I try to figure out how to get people to reframe their minds in that way to do it. But, it's one of those, that's really it. And then I think, come downtown, there's a gym on every block. Like, there's a gym everywhere, right? There's just fitness everywhere. So it's like a hub, and it's what you do. Harlem, I don't think it's ever been prioritized, right? And I think that owners prioritize fast food or the big chains, right? They want, like, guaranteed money. And again, I can respect that, but they're not trying to help build the community and get more movement, get more wellness, right? Everything we add is stuff that's making us worse. We don't need another chicken spot. We don't need another fast food restaurant. We need healthy options. Why can't I find a smoothie, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do I know where every single gym is? I could call it out. If I start from 1/10 and work my way up, I probably know all of them, right? And they're all within 10, 15, 20 block radius. So it's not like a lot to get to that's convenient.
Yeah.
And people need some convenience sometimes, or they're not going to do it. Again, this is a conversation that could be a whole nother episode.
Yeah,
But, it's just,
Yeah.
I look at all that stuff and I'm like, I'm just trying to do whatever I can in my space to get some people doing what they need to do. Because again, I didn't have any of this growing up.
Yeah.
I was an athlete and didn't have a place to go train. Right? I had to do the park, do some push-ups, stuff like that. I think I would have been way better off if I had a strength studio to go to, right? Or if my parents or my family friends had spaces they can go to and make movement and fitness a part of their lifestyle. Not like I can't afford it, so like I have to pay for groceries. I got to feed my kids. That should never be the thing.
Right.
I don't think it should be either or. I think both should happen because full circle, my mom, mobility wise, she could stand to be moving a little bit more, right? She's having a lot of hard times doing some of this stuff. And I'm like, wow, if she had that, and if she had a chance to invest in that stuff or could figure it out and not had to make decisions based on like finances, maybe she looks a lot different at 70 years old, So for me, I'm like, you got to keep moving.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of us in our community feel it, is when we look at the generations above us and what a struggle looks like as they age, right? But when you don't have those resources and you're focusing on being a mom and all that, it makes it tough. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears really quickly. We're going to have some fun. Okay. You ready? So this is called Sweat and Equity, this or that. I'm going to give you two options. You select an option. Try not to overthink it.
Okay.
And you can try not to overthink it, Ja. Okay? I believe in you. And I want you to give, even if it's like 1 or 2 sentences, as to why you're choosing that. Okay? All right. First one, systems first or people first?
Now, new me, systems first. With systems in place, it allows me to affect the people a lot differently and be more impactful early on because I'm collecting data and information that I can use immediately to kind of figure out what next step should be. Okay.
Hire for culture or hire for skill?
I'm hiring for culture first. I love culture. If you fit in, I can teach you everything you need to know to do the job after. But if you're just skilled, you probably come in with an ego of some sort, and learning from somebody else ends up being a little bit more challenging.
Impact or profit?
Today, me, profit. Again, if I'm profitable, my impact is a lot bigger because I can do a lot more from a place of abundance.
Structure or flexibility?
Ooh, that's tough. Can I do autonomy within framework? As an Aquarius, I need flexibility. I need to be able to move a little bit. But I do that within a structured environment, if that makes sense. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, it does make sense because I would answer the similar way. Membership model or class packs?
I do a little bit of both. Membership, I think, is the safer bet, just because you can consistently gauge revenue, what's coming in. You have X amount of members, right? Kind of lets you be able to make decisions for your business a little easier than class packs, because class packs are literally one they're done. And so you don't know when that person's going to finish, when they're going to re-up. So now it's a gamble of like when, where, why. Numbers don't necessarily make sense.
Okay. Serve everyone or serve a specific group?
Specific group these days. And in some way, shape, or form, try to expand my reach to do a little bit more when I can.
Move fast or move right?
All about moving right. I did a lot of fast, and that led me to, we've been on this show for a bit. So we know all the things that happen when you move fast. I will say this, I think you should move fast, but with strategy. I think what happens for people is they wait for things to be perfect, and then they do nothing. So move fast, and you can correct things, but also have some idea around where you're going.
Okay. Last one here. Success or fulfillment?
Fulfillment for me that's success. Right? I think if I die tomorrow, I leave here knowing that I gave everything. Right? I did it with integrity. I did it with pride. I didn't leave anything on the table, and I can live with that, even if like financially I'm not at the number I ever wanted to be at. But I can live with like knowing like I made a difference, and I look, and my daughter is going to be super proud when she hears all these stories about me.
Yeah. And what do you want your daughter to be reminded of when your name is brought up in the community?
I want her to just be a really good human being. Like, that's really what I want. I want her to be kind but stern. I want her to want to make an impact, and I want her to do it her way. I don't want her to feel like she needs to be controlled. I don't want to feel like she can't show up and be her authentic self. I want to really go into this world as a woman of color, knowing that she's the SHIT, and and no one can tell any different. And I think if she does that, she'll have a wonderful, successful life.
Yes, I love that. Well, Jah, we've talked a whole lot, and you have dropped so much gems. Thank you for being real, raw, and honest of the journey, because I don't think it gets said enough. And I just want to say thank you for all that you do for the community. You're doing it. I know it's a ton of work. I know it's stressful. I know it can be overwhelming, but I hope that you are so proud of what you built so far. All right.
And I want to say I'm extremely proud of you, because obviously we've known each other for, 13 years right now.
Yeah.
And like I said, your success is motivation. Every time I see your page, I see your stuff, I'm like, it's time I got to elevate. And so I need more of that in my life. So keep posting.
Thank you. Content friends. Thank you, Jah. Thanks for coming up.